This is a story about two people meeting each other and eventually coming together to create a new family. Sometimes you find love through small events in your life that you never expected to happen. Usually, you won't realize when it happens, but with time, patience, and faith, all things are possible. With all stories, there is usually a beginning and ending. However, with this one, we do start somewhere, but their story continues and changes as life goes on.
Where it all started. Stephen Randall Burton was born on October the 3rd, 1955. I, Barbara Ann Swearingen, was born on September the 26th, 1955, 1 week apart. At first glance. In December of 1964, we Swearingens moved next door to the Burtons' house. I first caught a glance of Steve picking up a football in his front yard as I stood on my front porch. I had wondered if Steve had seen me. I found out later in life that he had seen me and that he hoped a girl would move next door so he could marry her one day. Our families meet. As next-door neighbors, our families became good friends with each other. With my 4 siblings and Steve with his 2 brothers, we always had fun. Stephen was the ringleader as we followed him to play football, softball, tennis, tag, board games, and oh yes, ping pong, and lots of it. Distance. Even after we had moved a short distance away, our families kept in touch and visited each other. But we still missed each other miserably, and in time we all got involved in other things. Stephen took tennis lessons and played his drums. I joined the choir at the Center Junior High School, and I learned how to play guitar and I wrote my songs. A first step. When Steve and I was in high school, he was a senior and I was a junior, he asked me to go out on a double date with him and his friend Chuck Bierce and his girlfriend Dana. Well, we went to Worlds of Fun for the whole day from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. What a time we had. We rode a roller coaster at the evening, and it was called the Zambezi Zinger. Well, we hopped on that roller coaster and rode it, and it was so much fun. And then after the ride, Steve helped me to get out of the roller coaster, and he took my hand. He was such a gentleman. Steve ended up holding my hand the rest of the evening, and he didn't let go. And I rather enjoyed that. Towards the end of the night, I knew then and there that he really cared, and we were both really shy back then. Faith. Steve graduated high school in May of 1973. I put my faith in the Lord and I prayed and asked God that if Steve loved me, that he would tell me before he goes off to college so I'd know what to do. One day Steve had his motorcycle down at the end of the block and it had just died as I was coming in a car with some friends and just pulled up and my friend stopped their car and I said, "Oh, there's Steve." And when she stopped the car, I said, "Oh, don't stop, just go around the bend and let me out and then I will walk back and go see him." Well, as I got out of the car and I headed around the bend and I looked for Steve, but there was no Steve, and then here he came down that same hill again and his motorcycle died again. And then as it died, I walked up to him and I said, "Hi." And he says,
I thought we were going to the show.
And I told him, I says, "Well, my brother Rich, he can't go tonight. And he answered, and he said,
What about you?
I stammered the words, um, yes, I'll go home and ask Mom. He took his motorcycle home and beat me to my house. We smiled at each other as he passed by me as I'm running up the hill to make it home. And later that night, my prayer was answered. Steve had said after the movie, I love you. And before the night was over, I shared my heart with him too. I told him that I loved him, and that was June of 1973. Growing together. After Stephen graduated from high school, he went on to Rolla University for the fall and spring semesters. Before he left for college, he asked for my hand in marriage, and both my parents gave their blessings, and Steve's parents too. Steve bought me a ring at the Ward Parkway Shopping Center and gave it to me in January over dinner, as the ring was a symbol of a promise. So it became a promise ring, engagement ring, a wedding ring eventually, and my Christmas present. It cost a whole $50, but it was beautiful, and most of all, it was given with great love. Growing closer. I visited Steve in Rolla in the fall as he began another semester of classes. I ended up touring with his parents and Brother Pat as Steve led the way and showed where he lived and learned. I felt such a love from Steve as no other man could give. We made it through the fall, the winter, and even spring. He came home from Rolla when he could, as I lived with his folks. My heart pined for him, and we again missed each other so very badly, but we knew not much longer, and we would eventually be together. Each morning I would wake up, watch the sun come up, and say to myself, not much longer, 4 months, 2 months, and Steve will be out of school. Then 1 month, and before I knew it, 1 week, and then 1 day. My heart was elated. When he came home, we embraced, and now it was just be days before we would be married. The right time and season. We went to church a few times and prayer meetings, and Steve met some of my dearest friends. I knew Stephen loved God, His holy word, and tried to do what was right in the eyes of the Lord. I trusted him fully, and he equally trusted even during our long times apart. May 30th, 1974, I graduated from Center High. We had waited our whole life to be together, and the fairy tale was all coming true. I would marry my boyhood sweetheart, and he the girl next door. God had brought 2 lives together at the right time and season. He showered both of us with His blessings and grace. We made each other shine with love. Our day. The next day, May 31st, 1974, we would say our wedding vows. Mom Burton made me a beautiful bouquet of flowers she had picked up at the garden center. She helped me make the cake with coconut icing, and we set items on the table in which were given to Stephen and I as gifts. All was perfect and simple and done with great love. The minister came to Stephen's parents' house. Milton Beckett, my pastor, performed the ceremony. Only our immediate family was invited. All was simple, with Steve's mom and dad there, along with my mom and dad, my sister Pam and brother Ronnie and brother Mike. Both moms took pictures, and we gave the smiles and knew we were in a dream that came true. After the ceremony, each new spouse felt like they belonged to their new family, as in-laws took pictures. Our families were happy for us, and our parents' friendship deepened. My maid of honor was my sister Pam, and Steve's best man was my brother Ronnie. Stephen knew my family and felt comfortable with them as I was with his family. Later, we cut our cake and he was a good sport of eating it. I didn't know he wasn't fond of coconut, but he ate it anyways because he loved me. The honeymoon. Stephen and I, we went to Pomme de Terre for our honeymoon. I ended up having to show our marriage license to the register person at the hotel. And the next morning we had a wonderful breakfast. The next day we even camped out at the beach. We got into the water around about 10 a.m. Not until Steve, I had to tell him I was playing a little trick on him. I told him the water was real nice and to come on in. Well, he went on in that water, but it was a little chilly, and he froze. We smiled and played and realized that our new adventure of being married just started. We were blessed and we knew it. My heart and his, well, my heart was his, and his heart was mine, and no longer would we be apart, but a part of each other's lives and thoughts and prayers. Together at last. 3 months into the marriage in early August, we moved to Rolla together and I left Kansas City weighing about 110 pounds. When we moved back, we had put on a little bit of weight, but were healthier. Mom Burton said, "You are like roly-polies." It was really only 10 to 15 pounds. Stephen and I loved eating those Sara Lee brownies. Upon coming back to Kansas City, we lived with his folks in March of 1975 through December of 1975, and then we bought us a hut house at 4320 East 17th Street for $3,651. We were 20 years old, and Papa signed for it since we were under 21. I started working at Smacks for a time and then Ventures, and I made like about $2.40, and Steve, he worked at the Boone Elementary School. Eventually I landed a job at Sears near home, only about 2 blocks away. I began making $3.35 an hour. Steve got on at Sears across the river on Front Street. My sister Pam, she even got on at Sears, where I was working, down at Cleveland. Both her and I, we worked there for a number of years, and Stephen and I, we both eventually, in time, got laid off from Sears and decided to trade in our brand new Toyota Celica Coupe for a yellow Toyota Tercel. We took it all the way out west a month later, all the way to the coast, and we looked for jobs in California. We missed getting a job at Sears by about 1 week. Bonds. Our trip out west wasn't a waste, but an adventure. We ended up camping in the different national parks, and now and then we would stay in a hotel. What I do remember is that our new yellow car, that little Toyota Tercel, it ended up getting 49 miles per gallon, and that was back in 1981. I went to work for Montgomery Ward's for about 1 week, but left the job. I just didn't feel like I was supposed to be working there. Sears called me one night at 8:30 p.m. and wanted me to come back to work for them, and they offered me a 50-cent raise. I was happy to go back to work, and I made $7.50 an hour. I eventually got a new job at Bendix in January of '84. God again had other plans, with perfect timing, with a promise that I had of a dream I had in which my grandfather, Poppy, had told me I would have a baby boy. I hung on to that promise for 5 years, and then that little boy came about in August of 24th of 1984. We found out about him just 3 days before I started my new job. Our lives, they were totally changed. He was my missing joy. No longer would I be lonely when Steve was at work or when he was away. Life's new adventure. Steve ended up going back to college 20 years later, and he's had some rough patches, but he did get to live a childhood dream, and he got to go to work at NASA for 1 whole month. I myself have found a unique artist calling with drawing and painting, and I love to help feed the poor. I guess you're never done learning in life. Many things have changed over time, but our love has only grown, even through the ups and downs of life. Through prayer came hope, and dreams came true. Through struggle and pain, and loss of loved ones even, our bonds did not break, but tightened. This is our story, and it's only the tip of the iceberg. The story is not ending here. It's something that will never end.